On the Horn, we guarantee 60 minutes every hour. Or your money back. onthehorn.com.
Revenge porn bill goes to Senate. Restart on UConn basketball center after DOL lifts order. State campaign finance law may survive Supreme Court decision of last week. 6 marijuana dispensaries approved. Pot rolling at summer's end. Second Amendment advocates aim for revenge at ballot box. And the political roundup. Foley was at the CCDL rally. Jepsen announces re-election bid. Representative Widlitz retiring at end of term. Ted Kennedy Jr. announcing state Senate bid. Cafaro thinks that Connecticut's health insurance enrollment a failure, and political wagers won and on the line for UConn finals. Good evening and welcome to the 122nd edition of News Talk Tonight. I'm Dave Moore, your host of News Talk Tonight. News Talk Tonight is brought to you by Amazon.com, Sandage Travel, Sherpa Technologies, Budwitz and Meyer Jack CPAs, Deepwater Seafood of Avon, and CentralCTDental.com. Wherever you are on the World Wide Web, take us along with you. Thousands of listeners, you can too. On demand at iTunes, Stitcher, and of course, onthehorn.com. I also need to thank, as always, ctnewsjunkie.com, Doug Hardy and Christine Stewart for allowing me to use ctnewsjunkie.com as my primary news source. And frankly, there is no better news source in Connecticut than ctnewsjunkie.com. And now for the serious and silly 6 Connecticut news. When I was on the dating scene eons ago, and I broke up with someone, I never thought to get revenge on that ex by filming a sex act with her and then publicizing it. Maybe it was because I didn't have the technology to do it. Maybe because I didn't think about it. Or maybe it was because I didn't think it was a good idea. Apparently there are some who do think that it's a good idea, as it has been an ongoing phase, becoming a fad, where there's a bad breakup, you have revenge porn on the net. Well, apparently the state legislature doesn't think it's a good idea either. The State Judiciary Committee this last Wednesday passed the revenge porn bill by a vote of 38-1. It now goes to the Senate and hopefully to the House for further consideration. Some thought had to go into the drafting of the bill because of that pesky thing called the First Amendment, which could interfere with the best of intentions. Apparently, the Connecticut ACLU was satisfied with the final version of the bill, so hopefully the First Amendment concerns will not be an issue. The bill would make the dissemination of nude photos, videos of identifiable people, former partners, where the photo or video was not captured previously in a public or commercial space with the intent to harass, annoy, alarm, and or terrorize another person, the ex, a Class A misdemeanor punishable by up to a year in jail and or $2,000 in fines. I guess revenge is getting to be a little more expensive in Connecticut. A stop work order has been placed by the State Department of Labor after a surprise visit by the DOL on the site of UConn's Basketball Champions Center this last February. The order was issued after it was discovered that a subcontractor, Intex Building Systems of Glastonbury, and J&V Construction, brought in by Intex, were using undocumented workers and paying them cash to avoid paying state taxes. They apparently were also paying them at a rate that was well below what was required by state regulations. Gary Pesci, director of the State Department of Labor Division of Wage and Workplace Standards, said that the DOL found that the men working on the project were being paid $30 an hour less than what state regulations required. The order was lifted last week, and the contractor, Enfield Builders, will not be bringing Intex or J&V Construction back. Instead, Enfield Builders will be bringing in union workers from East Hartford's Acoustics, Inc. to continue on with the work. Intex has since been cleared of the major charges, but J&V has been found to owe over $368,000 for underpaying its employee. Pesci said that it is usually the third or fourth tier subcontractors who run afoul of the rules and regulations. $368,000 in underpayment sounds like a pretty major foul to me. Late last week, the Supreme Court of the United States struck down a campaign finance law that placed an aggregate campaign contribution cap in a decision known as McCutcheon versus the Federal Election Commission. The nation's high court ruled that the restrictions on the total contribution an individual can make to candidates, political parties, or PACs during an election was a violation of that individual's free speech rights. Yep, there's that pesky First Amendment again. State Elections Enforcement Commission Chair Anthony Castagno said that the SEEC is, quote, troubled, end quote, by the decision, but is confident that Connecticut's public financing system will, quote, withstand the effects of the decision, end quote. Castagno noted that 80% of the state's legislature and all of the constitutional officers of Connecticut were financed by public financing and elected under the current state law without special interest money. Part of the reason for the SEEC's confidence is that the law setting up the public financing is voluntary on the candidate's part, such that the compulsory aspect noted in the McCutcheon decision does not exist in Connecticut. And now we're going to take a brief break to pay for this wonderful news. We'll be right back.
Budwitz & Meyerjack PC is a large Connecticut-based CPA firm with offices in Cheshire and Farmington, Connecticut. Large enough to handle engagements of enterprises with annual revenues in excess of $100 million, yet small enough to cater to smaller businesses and individual clients who expect personalized attention from partners and staff. Client service is the cornerstone of our practice. Our clients have a fixed fee for their audit and tax work. What this means to the client is we're approachable. Personal communication and client services make for strong relationships. Budwitz & Meyerjack, certified public accountants.
Sandits Travel for business and leisure. We'll take you there. Sandits Travel has been proudly serving Connecticut since 1960. That's over 50 years. And we're ready for another 50 years of superior service. Whether you prefer to come in, call in, or log on, we invite you to explore how efficient, diverse, and fun it is to book through Sandits Travel. Save your money and your time with us. Sandits Travel. We'll take you there.
New, now, and loud. onthehorn.com.
News Talk Tonight is also brought to you by Deepwater Seafood of Avon. Have you been to the only fish market in Farmington Valley? Deepwater Seafood is located in Avon on Route 44 and is open 6 days a week, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., and Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. One of the best things about Deepwater is their fish are fresh, 3 deliveries daily to meet your needs. Deepwater has a menu of grilled fish items, scampi, fish and chips, soups, bisques, and chowders. For your catering needs, authentic paella, cedar plank salmon sides, and always the traditional New England clam bake. Yep, it's spring. Have a clam bake. Deepwater also has the very best shrimp cocktail that you'll find anywhere. Call in your order at 860-676-9657, and they'll have your order ready for pickup when you arrive. Deepwater Seafood of Avon, not just for the halibut. News Talk Tonight is also brought to you by CentralCTDental.com, Doctors Camp, Sambor, and Lupini. For serious issues or routine checkups, go nowhere else. Easy to get to on the Plainville-Farmington line. Call 860-747-5761 or make an appointment online at CentralCTDental.com. And now back to the news. The Department of Consumer Protection approved 6 marijuana dispensaries this last Thursday with locations in Hartford, Brantford, South Windsor, Uncasville, and Bristol. The facilities will be able to legally, under state law, dispense the pot to 1,990 individuals registered with the state, with the pot coming from the 4 approved as of this last January producers from West Haven, Portland, Simsbury, and Watertown. There are 2 problems that have not been discussed, and perhaps the discussion should start now: security and legal advice. While the growing facilities and the dispensaries have demonstrated to the department that they will have ultra-tight security at each location, no one has talked about how the pot will be secure going from the growing facility to the dispensary. Why? Well, I think that's a little detail that they wanted to leave alone. Also, an informal ethics opinion was recently issued stating that lawyers cannot ethically give legal advice or be involved with any transaction involving the growing facilities or the dispensaries. Why, might you ask? Because while the state has legalized this particular use of pot, the feds have not. And no lawyer can provide advice to promote or otherwise assist in activity that is deemed illegal by either the state or federal government. So no drafting of contracts, no financial closings, no formal or informal advice. It appears that there are still a few bugs in the system that need to be worked out. Nonetheless, the registered users are supposed to end their summer on a high note, as that will be when the pot will be available. Connecticut Citizens Defense League held a rally on the state capitol this last Saturday, and according to the Capitol Police, about 3,000 folks from Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, New York, and Mississippi showed up to protest gun control laws that were passed this last year. Several speakers noted that their rights were not for sale, nor should they be considered regulated privileges, but they were God-given rights. One of the speakers implicitly threatened Senate Minority Leader John McKinney, Republican from Newtown, by inviting him to come over to the speaker's house where the speaker's German shepherds could chew on a rhino, Republican in name only, instead of their deer bones. How sweet. A representative of the National Rifle Association noted that the NRA would support any Second Amendment candidate, particularly in Connecticut, and would continue to support the litigation challenging the laws passed this last year. Calls for assisting candidates in their campaigns, not just financially, were made, and it was noted that the departures of Senate President pro tempore Donald Williams and House Minority Leader Representative Lawrence Cafaro were caused by the supporters of the Second Amendment, and that it shouldn't stop there, and that they were promising a bruising election fight in November. One would expect that Martha Dean would be at the CCDL rally this last Saturday, and she was, as was Joe Visconti. Both are Republican gubernatorial candidates. What was surprising was that Tom Foley was there too. None of the Republican gubernatorial candidates there spoke at the rally, but both Dean and Foley have spoken at previous meetings of the CCDL in Middletown. State Attorney General George Jepsen announced yesterday that he was seeking re-election and would be filing the necessary papers earlier today. Jepsen said that he was trying to remain the state's Attorney General 24/7 for as long as possible before becoming a candidate. Sound familiar? Anyone? Malloy? Anyone? State Representative Pat Widlitz, Democrat of Guilford-Brantford, has announced that she will not be seeking a re-election come November, and has further announced that she will retire when her term ends on December 31st, 2014. Widlitz represents the same area that State Senator Ed Meyer represents, and he has previously announced his own retirement at the end of the year. Attorney Ted Kennedy Jr., yes, that Ted Kennedy, the son of the former senator, has announced that he will be running for Meyer's seat, and he announced that today. Kennedy lives in Brantford with his wife Kiki and 2 children, and there is no word as of yet as to who the Republican opponent for Kennedy will be. In attempting to finish his legislative career with a flourish, State Representative Lawrence Cafaro has openly challenged the assertion that the state version of Obamacare was a success. Unfortunately, his claim for failure doesn't quite jibe with the actual prediction or actual numbers, as it was predicted that 100,000 people would sign up, and actually 197,900 signed up. Oops, a little off there, Larry. And for those of you who think that all politicians are fusty old men with no sense of humor, there are the wagers that were made by Connecticut Governor Daniel P. Malloy with Kentucky Governor Steve Beshear and Indiana Governor Mike Pence over the NCAA basketball championships. Thanks to UConn winning last night, Governor Beshear will be sending Malloy a Kentucky bourbon basket created from a half barrel from Maker's Mark. If the Lady Huskies win, then Malloy will also get a basket of Hoosier agricultural items. If you ask me, Kentucky's was the better bet to win. Well, that's the Connecticut's Serious and or Silly 6 for tonight. I'm Dave Moore. You've been listening to News Talk Tonight on onthehorn.com. This was the 122nd edition of News Talk Tonight, and I thank you for joining me for that. The show was brought to you by Amazon.com, Sanders Travel, Shipping Technologies, Budwitz and Meyerjack CPAs, Deepwater Seafood of Avon, and CentralCTDental.com. Please also remember to tune in next Wednesday at 8:30 a.m. for the Black Eyed and Blue Show, hosted by the team of Brian Lee and the ever-irrepressible Ryan Parker. Join me again next Tuesday for another edition of News Talk Tonight. And remember, even though baseball season has now started, UConn are the men's champs, and hopefully the Lady Huskies will be too. Go Huskies! See you next week.